Welcome back. I'm Austin Westfall. We do want to cover the latest on the Israel-Hamas war. National security analyst and retired Marine intelligence officer Hal Kempfer is standing by. Hal, as always, it's good to see you. I want to get straight into this. This is from the Israeli government. They say the IDF located a number of bodies during combat in the Gaza Strip. At this time, the troops are still operating in the area and are carrying out a process to extract and identify the bodies that will last several hours. We ask to refrain from spreading rumors. Obviously, Hal, there's a lot of chatter about what exactly this means. What are you taking from this?
Austin, what this is it's an inference to they found the bodies of Israeli hostages. That's the only reason. You just don't see them actually put out stuff like this. This is not a normal thing that they would put out unless they had come across the bodies of hostages. And so that's how it's being interpreted in Israel, is that this is the preface to another announcement where they actually have identified the remains. The other issue, too, is because they were unable to immediately identify them, it does kind of imply that there's going to have to be a certain forensic scientific process of verifying who they actually are, which means they may not have passed away recently. They may have passed away much earlier. This goes into a huge debate within Israel. As you may recall, Netanyahu and his defense minister, Yoav Gallant, were in a pitched fighting, well, not pitched fighting, pitched yelling, at least reportedly pitched yelling in a meeting about the terms of the larger ceasefire. And Netanyahu's intransigence on a key issue, which is pulling troops out of the Philadelphia corridor, that area right along the border. So there is already within the Israeli political realm, there is already a lot going on, a lot of turbulence. And then this comes out, which feeds into the narrative, if you will, that every day delayed is going to be less hostages that come back. And reportedly, I think the chief of the Israeli armed forces actually is, I believe, is reported to have said that this could end up with this unless they can come to some compromise on the Philadelphia corridor. They could lose 30 lives, implying the 30 hostages that would be released under the current negotiation terms.
There are still some 100 people missing that were taken captive on October 7th. We have no idea, we have no confirmation as to if these are in fact the bodies of hostages, and if they are, we don't know how many there are. How does that change the balance of negotiation in this war if there are far fewer hostages in Hamas captivity?
Well, there's about 106 hostages that have been unaccounted for or still being held. It's just not clear how many of them are still alive. And when they were negotiating the current negotiation terms in Doha and Cairo, they were talking about first 6 weeks, get 30 hostages released. And it wasn't clear if Hamas could get 30 live hostages. They actually had to go back and say, no, it has to be 30 live hostages released. And there was some back and forth on that as to whether they could actually meet those terms. Now, it could have been the criteria that they had applied to which hostages they were going to have released, but it also indicates that there's probably a number of those of the 106 that aren't with us anymore, that did not survive captivity for whatever reason. And it's a tragic situation, but it plays heavily on the minds. Now, it's obviously the hostage families. This has been, the sum of all fears, if you will. This has been a horrific ordeal for them, and all the friends of those who are held. But beyond that, it's weighing on the psyche of the Israeli public, which is that they have to do something. They have to get these hostages home. And you saw when they did a successful hostage raid recently, it really buoyed the spirits of the Israeli public. Of course, it immediately comes back down to earth that they only got a few or one or whatever. They got one released, the most recent one, but it really does buoy the hopes that they'll get others out of there. But they're at this very difficult inflection point, if you will. Not so much the negotiations themselves as within the cabinet, and not so much within the whole cabinet, within the war cabinet, which is a separate thing. Although Netanyahu can always take anything to a vote with the regular cabinet, of course, are his political supporters. So whatever he takes there tends to get approved regardless. But within the war cabinet, there does appear to be some very strong feelings that they need to shift their position.
Brock Ravid of Axios saying that President Biden told reporters that the IDF is still working on identifying the bodies that were found in Gaza. It's time this war ended, Biden said. Biden added he is still optimistic about the Gaza hostage and ceasefire talks and said, "We think we can close the deal." And it continues. I want to ask you, Hal, what may sound like an obvious question, but I would love the answer in your words. How do we know that this is not some situation where we're talking about the bodies of high-ranking Hamas officials or perhaps some other type of situation that we're not talking about? How do we know that it's likely Israeli hostages and not something else like that?
I think it's the terminology that's used. Frankly, if they took out high-ranking Hamas members, they don't talk about their bodies. They put out an announcement saying we think we took out high-ranking Hamas members. And by the way, it's not a somber tone. It's a tone of mission success that they did that. And I haven't seen anything where they talk about the bodies. There's nothing like this that comes out when they talk about the bodies of Hamas members in total. Usually, when you see something like this, we're talking about bodies. It's because those on the ground, suspect, believe, whatever, that these are probably bodies of Israeli hostages. They even use a different terminology when one of their own is lost in combat. For example, one of their soldiers is killed. They don't normally they don't put out it this way. They don't talk about bodies. They talk about they lost a lost life, if you will, killed in action or something like that. It's just not the term bodies implies that they've uncovered something, and the fact that they're reporting it would indicate that it's something that they want to prepare everybody to learn about, which will probably be that more likely than not that these are the bodies of hostages that have been recovered.
We'll await to hear more from the Israeli government about this situation. I want to move on to another big deal in Gaza. We talk so much about the possibility of a ceasefire in this war, and now, Hal, we're actually going to see a very small version of one. Daily 8-hour fighting pauses have been agreed to in order for the United Nations to vaccinate hundreds of thousands of children in the Gaza Strip against polio. This follows confirmation last week that a baby was paralyzed by type 2 polio virus, the first such case in the territory in 25 years. I imagine, Hal, that a vaccination campaign in Gaza is very complicated. What do we know about how they're going to get this done?
This is really an amazing accomplishment. Of course, the big thing was, polio was once the scourge, certainly the scourge of the 20th century, and vaccinations work. I mean, vaccinations. When I was a kid, got vaccinated. I think a couple of times for polio. Everybody got vaccinated. It was and for because of that, polio was very rare, but it is a very dangerous disease. It can maim for life. It can potentially kill. And so when they saw this pop up in Gaza and looking at the horrendous conditions, for sanitation and everything, and water, everything else there, they said, hey, look, we got to get on this right now. And it was fascinating to watch both Hamas and Israel come to what I would say was, fairly compared to the other agreement or negotiating process, fairly fast. They came up with this agreement to allow the polio vaccinations, approximately 640,000 children. They're going to do this 3-3-3 thing. They divide the country into 3 different areas. Each of those areas will get 3 consecutive days from 06 to 3 o'clock in the afternoon, where they will go in and do these mass vaccinations. And I think the hope is, I don't think they believe they're going to get everybody, but if they can get a huge percentage of that young population, that will slow down, it'll certainly stop an epidemic or pandemic, if you will, of polio, but it would stop the transmissibility throughout the population such they feel they can do this. And it's going to be 3 days of this happening. And as of an hour ago, my understanding is that they actually started early.
Mm.
Both sides agreed, and they allowed them to go in, and they're doing vaccinations as we speak. So I thought that was pretty good news. The hope everyone has is if this works well, maybe some of this will roll into the larger ceasefire negotiations, and they'll say, "Hey, this is working. Let's try, at least the first 6 weeks or something of the larger negotiation." One could only hope that this carries over, but right now everybody's just says, "Hey, look, they're two different things. Don't confuse them, and don't build false hope for the big ceasefire negotiation just because they're able to come to terms on this one."
Is this the first thing that we've seen them agree on since November, since they returned a number of hostages in return for Palestinian prisoners last year?
Certainly the first thing like this. I
Yeah.
mean, you actually have these long pauses. It's systemic. It's going over a series of days, 9 days. That's actually a pretty impressive accomplishment. And here's the thing I see on that. That's a ceasefire to allow the polio vaccinations. I also have a feeling, there's a variety of international aid groups, the United Nations and others that are operating in the area. I can't believe that they wouldn't take full advantage of these ceasefires in these areas to do the most they can to try and get aid to everybody else as well. So I think this 9 days may have not just the polio part, but there may be other parts of this that allow for aid to get in there with the population in a more efficient manner, at least for the next week and a half, maybe allow more to get in there. One hopes that would make sense. So
This was certainly some good news, and it's not very often we hear of good news coming out of Gaza. Hal, I want to leave it on Gaza with you there for now. I want to take a break. I want to talk about Iraq with you after a quick 2-minute break. We'll be right back.